In this video, we're going to take a look at how to multiply decimals. For our first example, let's take a look at how to multiply 1.4 with 0.27. So the first thing we need to understand about multiplying decimals is, unlike adding and subtracting, we do not have to line up the decimals. Instead, we're going to multiply these two numbers together as if they were whole numbers. So first of all, if they were whole numbers, I have 14 and I'd have 27. We would probably put the 27 on top and the 14 below it. But remember, this isn't really 27. This is really 0.27. And this isn't really 14. It's 1.4. So now we're going to multiply. And again, we're going to multiply these as if they were whole numbers. So that means that we can actually ignore this 0, pretend it's not even there, because if this was a whole number, we wouldn't bother putting a 0 out in front of a whole number 27. So let's multiply. 4 times 7 is 28. Put the 8 down, carry the 2. And then 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Then we move on to the 1. So I need a placeholder 0 first, and then 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 2 is 2. Add it all up. 8 and 0 makes 8. 0 and 7 makes 7. And 1 and 2 makes 3. Now, this is where we need to take into account our decimals. So to finish this off, I need to count up the number of decimal places in each of my factors. So decimal places will be each digit after the decimal. So in my first factor, I have 1, 2 decimal places, and in my second, I have just 1. So that's a grand total of 3, which means that our product needs to have 3 decimal places. So this will be 1, 2, 3 decimal places, which means my decimal has to go out there. So my final answer is 0.378. For our second example, let's change this just slightly. This time let's do 0.14, and let's multiply that by 0.0027. So again, notice that if I ignore the decimals, this is pretty much 14 times 27. So again, I probably want to put the 27 on top, and I want the 14 on bottom. But remember, this isn't actually 27. This is 0.0027. And this isn't really 14. It's 0.14. Now again, since I'm ignoring the decimals, pretending these are whole numbers, I get to ignore all of these zeros in the multiplication. I can just pretend they're not even there. And so the multiplication is going to look pretty much like it did last time. So 4 times 7 is 28, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. 0 is a placeholder. 1 times 7 is 7, 1 times 2 is 2. And I add all this up, and again I'm going to get 8, 7, and 3. Now here's where the big difference comes. I'm going to count up my decimal places now. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places in the first factor, and 1, 2 in the second, which means I need a grand total of 6 decimal places. So this would be 1, this would be 2, 3, and so that means I need 1, 2, 3 more decimal places to get my grand total of 6 decimal places. Well, each of these empty spaces will just get filled with a 0. and a 0 out front of my decimal for good measure. So my final answer here would be 0.000378. So notice these last digits match these last digits. The only difference between these two problems is how many decimal places the answer has at the end.